special guest right here. And this is the two from Honey Hills Farms. Welcome.
Hi.
So you guys had a fun day. I know that somebody almost had to work over, but here you are. So I'm glad you guys could make it.
Yep.
Excellent. And then I know that YouTube is not playing very nice. So I know that people are going to trickle in throughout this. So this is going to be kind of a live Q&A. So we will jump into the chat and answer any questions you guys have. If you guys catch the replay, then I greatly appreciate it. So we'll jump right into this. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Ladies first.
So I'm Rachel Hoppy.
So I'm Vance Hoppy, and so we are homesteaders. We're building that direction. I know everyone has different criteria on maybe what they think is effective, but I think as long as you're trying to be self-sufficient, we live on a 40-acre farm, and so we've been here for 10 years, a little over 10 years total. And so some of what we're involved in, we have goats, mostly dairy goats now, some horses, a couple of cows. We're edging into that market for both dairy and meat. And we've got honeybees, chickens, ducks, pigs, rabbits, and then
We dabble in different things.
yeah, and so different things. So I'm a pastor of a local church, a small church that has maybe 30 on a Sunday. We're I guess you could say that we're Reformed Baptist in the teaching, and I work full time on a swing shift at the local paper mill, and so you could tell them. I don't know, of course, some of your herbalism is something else.
School. I'm a herbalist. I'm the one that kind of drives I guess, the farm page and some different directions that we do here on the farm. Um, Other than that, it's just basically, it's a team effort as far as what we decide to do, as far as goals on a yearly basis. So that's about it as far as, personal introductions, I think.
Well, I see Southern Tier Prepper has joined the chat and she has a question for you. Where are you all located?
So we are in, I guess you would call it Central Kentucky, Central Western Kentucky. It's Hallsville. You'll see if you look on a map between Owensboro and Louisville, and we're right on the Ohio River. And so fairly centrally located, actually. It's actually, eh, depending on a person's interests, we're a good distance. I mean, if you think in terms of emergency situations,
Yeah.
we find ourselves in a rural setting, but able to reach. Well, I mean, they call it the heartland for a reason. It's easy to navigate to almost anywhere. You know.
I like it. I like it. And the Ohio River down there is really, really pretty. I got family right there on the Ohio River.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And then you touched on, I think, just about every question that I have. So we're gonna go right into it all.
Yeah, let's
So
do it.
you guys said that you've been down there for how long now? About 10, 20, 10?
On our current farm, yes. Um,
I grew up in this area.
she's the native, so you tell them about some of your family farm, maybe.
We actually, like, the property that we have right now is actually my great grandparents' property,
Mhm.
that we were able to purchase. And the rest of my family's farm is down the road, and so that's the farm that I kind of grew up on. Running through the woods, doing all the childhood things that you can think of as I was growing up. So it's really neat to be able to grow my kids up on a farm that was in my family. So
Yeah, and so I was raised probably, I don't know, 30 minutes west of here, and it just, of course, I had family that farmed for a living, tobacco and cattle, and uh, well, all sorts of things, really, chicken houses and whatnot. And so I was accustomed to some of the work, and it wasn't until probably, let me try to think back. So somewhere around 2000 um, or 2001 or something like that, um, that my dad purchased a 50-acre farm, um, that's not terribly far from here. And but he traveled for work. And so, yeah, my time going through school, of course, you'll hear us talk about homeschool all the time. It's a big deal, but we were both government educated, you know. So we've kind of come out of the camp. And but anyway, I ran that farm while he was all going through school, before school, after school. And so I actually raised, while he was on the road, he had some cattle, but I think I kept about 80 or 90 breed does of boar goats.
Yeah.
And, bush hog 50 acres, from, from the age of, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, 15, 16 years old. I did all that, a lot of it by myself. And they were working on renovating a house. And I never lived in that house, but they are living there now. And so I helped with some of that project. And then we were high school sweethearts.
Oh,
And that's grace and providence that, she's had a lot of influence. I chased her up in a Baptist church, and I'm a Baptist pastor. And we have undertook farming together. We started out, I went into metalwork and industry. Um, and we bought our little house and did all of that. And I can't say it just unfolded from there, but there was a strong drive. This is what you're working. You want to build a heritage. And we wanted a farm. I watched my dad try to do it, and how difficult it was. And I thought, we need to start this trajectory early. And so we struggled through that. That was quite another story, I guess. But I don't know how much y'all want to go down that road or not.
hey, we've got a whole hour to fill. I do want to say though that Mr. JS Genesis Designs did pop in and say hello. So welcome, brother. And then Southern Tears got the homeschooling is the best decision ever made, and I completely agree with that.
Yes. Look, so we were those people. We talk of homeschooling a lot, and uh, we were unfamiliar with it. We saw things come down the pipe once we began having children. So we had children. We just thought we'll be good parents. Rachel, you actually taught at there was a private preschool at the church we were going to at the time.
Preschool for a preschool teacher for several years.
Yeah, so she did some teaching in that setting for several years. We stuck our oldest in school, and we strive to be there, present, active, involved. And so we know the efforts of a lot of parents. And we had the discussion. And actually, Rachel said that, I'm not going to homeschool. I'm not a homeschool mom. And we basically came to the conclusion we didn't think that private schooling was any better. We didn't think that,
It was actually after I did my research
yeah.
that I became a homeschool parent.
Yeah,
So
but we
just to
we
put it
said
simply.
that when we feel like they're going to tear down what we're going to try to build up,
Mhm.
that we're going to do it. And we got one semester into his first year of kindergarten, and we began
The
to
public school.
in a government school, and we began to see some of that. And so it since then it's been wonderful. We have made that decision, and I say that because you all know how your kids are. They're all different. They learn different,
Mhm.
and you to see them thrive in all of those different capacities instead of see the one that we knew would have difficulty, would have had all sorts of labels, maybe even medications. And there are no medications for any of our children in our house. They're all healthy and well. They're just kids that are different.
Well, and it's been really interesting because um, as we've developed, our homesteading lifestyle, homeschooling has really been integral in that. I mean, it's just kind of easily, um, integrated into what we call life, I guess.
Yeah, it's part of our it's part of our discipleship. We're involved with church. It's part of our homesteading. I mean, of our
Absolutely.
business. We work together. Our training. I mean, preparing our sons and our daughter for real life. Mainly our sons because they're a little older and are thinking they're thinking mechanically and practically and looking at trades and so they're getting all of that. And I really like the way I've had one friend put it that our the golden age or golden era, the era that gave us all of our modern inventions, the era that produced for us the um, industrial revolution, all of these were educated in a one-room schoolhouse with a potbelly stove in the middle.
Yep.
And and I'm going to tell you, read when you read whatever one thing that we like is a little it's really a portion. I can't remember the original framers of that book, but it's often it's called George Washington's Rules of Civility.
Hmm.
It's really a pamphlet he copied from a larger production, but you see they were far um, there's nothing that's un I don't know underdeveloped or anything in their thinking at all. um, I would argue quite the opposite. Whenever and that's why I remind a lot of people. It's one thing that irks me is about people who talk about the younger generation
Hmm.
with disdain, and I have to remind them, listen, it's 17 to 22-year olds that have won our wars, that wrote our Constitution. I mean, these are bright individuals, and so it really bothers me. And so I always ask, well, who raised those kids? If the
Hmm.
kids are the problem, who are their parents? You know.
Hmm. Yeah, fully agree with that. And I see Leonard Mountain Homestead popped in. Amy has actually been really under the weather, so prayers to her and her family. And I will post a link to all of your guys' stuff after we get off here, so that way everybody can go find you guys.
Yeah, cool.
But and one of the things I think I found you guys on Facebook, and I stumbled upon, and I think you guys were live, and I was watching, and it was the cutest moment ever because somebody's trying to cook breakfast, and you guys are talking, and the kids are going back, and I'm like, this is real. This isn't a people getting on here trying to pretend and just get money and clicks, and you guys were from the heart, and I was like, I'm tuned in, I'm done.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool, cool.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. I have to multitask
Hmm.
constantly, and that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Life is not a production, especially in the age, and you can appreciate this. You have a show and you're putting information out, you're drawing people together, and so you've got a mission of your own, and yet so often that is mistaken for
Hmm.
some form of the Truman Show, where we're like all acting and we're not experiencing real life together. I spent the better part of an entire year where we were involved with social media. I was running the page for the church. We had our farm page. We both had personal pages. I was running a page for our dojo where we practiced judo, and we were just so involved. And so I just delegated all of that and stepped away from social media altogether for the better part of a year. And then we recently, she was getting on. We felt really led to just really just produce and call people to try to equip for the little bit of time that is available and
Hmm.
just to keep it real. But part of the reason we left is because we wanted those tangible relationships. We encourage people that we talk to seek us out so we can feel and touch and hug and wrestle and fight and whatever we got to do together to build strong community. And if you can't get to us, get to your people wherever you're at. And one of the things, and I can't remember what. So where are you from? Where's your location?
So I'm in Ohio.
Okay, in Ohio. And
Hmm.
so I have one of the really great blessings that I've had is as we interact with different people. Um, I'll just call them up. You know, you see these guys that get all these followers, and
Mhm.
to me it looks like celebrity status. You know, but I call them up, have a wonderful conversation, just ask like, what's God doing out there where you're at? What's going through your mind? What's driving you, and how are you thinking through our times and whatever? And so it shows that this movement that all of us here are evidently a part of, I think it is something from God. I think that He is preserving us and drawing us together. Um, but it's been wonderful. I mean, conversations, you know, on all those that just names I'll drop that we've been associated with, whether just we've enjoyed their material or we've had a small conference with our church called Hope in the Home, and so we've had a few really cool people that we've gotten to meet, and that's like Israel Wayne. He big time in the homeschool community, and I couldn't believe like he left HSLDA conference and he came down to hang out with us at our little country church. And Josh Nemi wrote Expository Parenting. Rory Groves, who wrote
That's a good one.
Durable Trades. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that. Uh, Incredibly insightful man and a wonderful, beautiful family. And you know, even you know, I called up, had a wonderful conversation with Jaron Jackson. Man, cool dude, level headed, and he's just on par for the course, man. I mean, I think it's what we're all looking for is not these talking head celebrities. I'll never be that. I've got a good job. We're settled. We got a lot going on, and so we're just kind of happy with the people that the Lord is bringing into our path. You know.
It's very
That's
important.
awesome.
Communities.
Awesome. Yes, and we're going to get into that. Though, if you see their Southern Tier, the all clean country kitchen with no messes drives me crazy.
I know it drives me crazy too.
Yeah.
I love it. Everybody's coming in, and then right there with Mr. JS putting God first, absolutely. And so,
So
actually, what I'm going to do, I have something I want to show off, but I'm going to ask a question. Then I'm going to go
Okay.
over here and grab something I'm going to show off to you while you
Okay.
answer. So,
Okay.
how important is faith when you're doing something like prepping, homesteading, anything along those lines?
I'll let you answer first.
It's absolutely necessary. Um, I'm not going to dive into a story, but uh, like with homesteading for us, again, it was one of those things that developed into kind of preparing. And, you know, I had somebody comment saying that, well, I didn't have the faith in God because she made the comment about raising rabbits, which, whatever. Um, but, you know, I have to rely on God, you know, so that I can have the ability to do what we do or to sustain us because I can't do it all by myself, you know, and I
Mhm.
have to rely on the blessings of the Lord and have faith in Him to um, you know, especially right now with what's going on, going into the spring this year and you know, not really knowing that what's
Mhm.
going to happen. But you know,
Mhm.
I'm going to rely fully on Him to give me what my family needs, what the community needs, and so it's absolutely necessary in what we do. It's
Oh yeah,
essential.
completely agree. And what I had to go grab because I'm going to uplift my brother here for JS Genesis Designs. I bought this from him. This is my Ten
Oh,
Commandments. This is beautiful that I had to get this, and I
oh,
always love to show this off.
yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Great, he did a great job.
Yes,
It's good shit too.
he does amazing work, and I always have to uplift him, and I'm always so proud to show it off, and it's really great to be able to show it to people that appreciate it, and it's not just
Yeah.
oh, it's a pretty piece of wood.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's much more than that.
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
and because it does carry that sentimental value. It's that community. Um, it's more than the Ten Commandments.
Mhm.
And it's that person, which is ironic because that's when God gave the law. He was calling a people who was not a people to himself as his own possession. So our community, everything you asked, what role does faith play? How much
Mhm.
of a foundation is it? Listen, it is. It's the foundation of all of it. And this has been something that's been huge for us because uh, I feel like I'm thankful you asked the question because I feel like it's an area it's a gaping hole
It is.
Mhm.
in, in the conversation. And some of these, what is the big? They've got the big conference, Homesteaders of America,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? And I think so. Really great speakers, some people down there, but then there's also somewhere that are coming in that don't understand that faith aspect,
All right.
and they're given this platform. But what I would say is it's that strong theology. Everyone can enjoy growing a garden, putting
Mhm.
something in the dirt and watching it grow. Everyone can enjoy that. But to have a theology that says that you are working with your hands,
Mhm.
achieving dominion over the dirt from which you were made, that is biblical, and
Mhm.
that is cool. It is it is a wonderful experience that because you're fulfilling a calling and a vocation of God,
Mhm.
and you were made to do. I think that a lot of people have trouble with religion, or you might hear doctrine divides. Doctrine unites. What divides are pansy pastors who don't work with their hands.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
you, you need men to be men, and women to be present in the home, and you need your children to thrive with both of them in that relationship. Um and so if I may, which I love this, so I'm going to give a brief plug if I may. So it's the this is actually, I talk a little bit about that dominion mindset. I've actually got a small book here called let's see, I don't know if that's in reverse. It's Man in the Wild,
Mhm.
Building a Theology of Dominion, but that's on Amazon. Um, but it just discusses some of that, more of a raw approach, in understanding what all of this is about, all this creation
Mhm.
narrative, and why it's so important.
Well, and I think we've removed ourselves, and Vance and I, we've had this discussion multiple times. But when you're constantly removed from your food source,
Mhm.
whether it be the garden or animals or nature in general, um, it seems like there's almost like a void there of um, missing of that relationship between you and God. And I know I've said this multiple times to people, but when I'm out in the garden, whether it be, weeding the garden out or do whatever, I can't help but to pray. Like it almost comes so naturally to me. I step out there and I feel like scripture, I mean, it talks about, Jesus in the garden um and so to me, I think if we're not, out there, getting our hands dirty, doing what God created us to do, we're missing something vital, physically and spiritually in our lives.
Mhm.
Well, and I would say, a lot of people miss the point that it's true. Israel was called out of Egypt. The Hebrew people, they were slaves. They were called out to the land flowing with milk and honey, and there's these wonderful promises. But what we often skip over is that Egypt was actually the agriculturally superior ground. Every time there was a famine, it was to Egypt. That's how they got there. They went to Egypt for the resources because they were always fruitful because of the Nile and the delta
Mhm.
there.
Hmm.
And so what's really cool is to understand that God called them out of that setting to a shepherding culture because of what he would teach them. So if we understand that, and we recognize that we can shepherd, we can farm, we can homestead, we can do these things, and we're looking for God. Martin Luther said, God was in the hidden places, and whenever we look for Him there, we start. That word comes alive, like I think Rachel was saying, because you know it's lost on people when they say Jesus will separate the goats from the sheep. They think it's discriminatory or something. They don't understand that. They don't understand that goats need copper to survive, and
Mhm.
copper will kill a sheep if it's found in its diet. They don't understand that a sheep is flighty and needs a shepherd and has no defense mechanism. They don't understand that a goat will try to outsmart you and is much more predictable than a sheep. They don't understand all of those things. It's completely lost. And so the Bible, it's no wonder they try to say that it's dead or it's irrelevant. It's really not. It's the fact that they, as humans, have become dead and irrelevant in their thinking.
Yes.
And
Well, if you can't tell, faith is a very big part of what we do around here.
Mhm.
the worms.
No, that's okay. And if you start reading down there in the comments, I mean, we already got Bible scripture coming in. Southern Tier wants to know who the author was. They didn't see that cover.
Oh, so that was me, Vance Hoppy. So man in the wild, building a theology of dominion, and it's Vance VanceHopp. I think that might be in reverse. I can't tell on our
No,
screen.
it's reversed for you, but it's good for us.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
good.
Yep.
So that's it, and it's published by the Hope Movement. So what's cool about that is it's a friend of mine, and I don't know that he makes any profit from any of that. He uses that to build resources, and I haven't made any money off of them either. Most of the time we give these things away, and I'm able to get them at cost from him, and just try to do things that's going to build people's faith. So it's wonderful, and if it helps his ministry, it's all the good. But yeah, definitely a big part. Those, and just I guess for the record, so I've only got, if you look on Amazon, I've got 2 books. One was just a study we did as a church, theology
Mhm.
for the family, and I met this friend. I had a class with him, and he did all the work. He was like, "Man, I will put this together in a wonderful book." And he did, and it was a great job. And now I can hand it to young couples. I'd give it to people, and and then this Man in the Wild was really the result. I was invited to speak at a breakfast, and it really just triggered a personal study. And so I spent several months to a year in this study about dominion, and I compiled these notes, and I shared those with my sons. I read those to them, and this same friend, Jonathan, he did the same thing, did a wonderful job, and drew it all together. So they just kind of happened. So I don't know, these young kids. That's one thing they're good at, is I think making money. People talk about them not wanting to go to work, but they're getting rich off YouTube and stuff like this, and I'm like, I don't make anything. We
Mhm.
just work, and we just try to save pinch pennies, and which is fine, because God's providence is always good.
Mhm. Yeah, completely. And it looks like you just sold another copy. So excellent. Well, I'm going to go because I keep seeing the kids in the background, and so we already talked about homeschooling. No, 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 no. We like the kids. Actually, I think mine's like 2 feet behind me here. So, how involved is the daily lives of chores and everything like that for the kids to keep the homestead going?
Yes.
Yeah. They know their chores, they know who they have to feed, who they take care of. And it's basically, they've got their set animals that they have to take care of, and then they help us do the extra chores, whether that be um farm maintenance or gardening or um I mean
So it's all of it.
livestock
you know the Right, the joy. So there is the day to
maintenance.
day, and we try to get a pattern to where you water the rabbits, and you feed the hogs or whatever. But what really comes to mind is, for me, are difficult or exceptional jobs. So like it's not difficult. They talk about sex education, gender identity. Look,
Hmm.
it's automatic whenever you're breeding animals and you're seeing the behaviors, you're seeing the birthing process, the difficulties that come with that. You're seeing failure when you
Yeah.
lose a life. You're seeing what feel the just the pain of loss when you've got an animal that you have to put down that you aren't able to eat due to disease. Um, and it's incredibly difficult. And it's some of those all of those principles that we try to involve them in a number of ways. So there's some that, right, my young daughter will insulate her from at this point in her life, but my sons will be the ones to pull the trigger, because as a man, you do things that you don't like, and you
Hmm.
swallow. So this I don't know how people feel about this, um, but I don't really espouse the whole like get in touch with your feminine side stuff. Um, I tell my sons, like, it doesn't matter how you feel. If you're mad, angry, sad about it, but something important needs to be done, you bury all that. You can deal with that later, but this has to get done. There's
Hmm.
nothing else. There's no one else. The world, all this relies on you, and you
Mhm.
have to do it. So it doesn't. No one else. No one in the world cares about your emotions. The real world doesn't care if you're upset about your job or whatever. Like, you do what's required,
Hmm.
because there are people and others who depend upon you and the safety of the whole herd and everything else. And so you grit your teeth and you do what's impossible. And that's so they take part in those chores too. I don't do all that on my own. And
Well, they live life with
yeah,
us.
they live life.
Yeah.
And so I'm very thankful, because now, because of some of that, in my absence, I have, one and sometimes two young men now that are of an age that their mom can say, "Hey, I can't stomach this. You need to go take care of this issue out here, or
Hmm.
this chicken or something that maybe whatever a hawk got a hold of or something." They're okay with it. And then there's the happy moments where they can see and be part of the process of processing our own chickens, and then they can get the fruit of their labors. They can taste how good it is, and they can
Hmm.
appreciate that this isn't just chicken. You're not consuming it. Um, you're actually tasting the fruit of a life well lived. It's that you've stewarded well, you've cared for, you've made comfortable and happy. Um, and so that's huge. You should love the animals that you eat.
Hmm.
And so it's not I don't know, disingenuous or something. I mean, we definitely want to be a part of that. I was trying to keep up with some of the comments here.
Oh, you got it right there with Nanny. You raising them right. She's a fan.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
trying.
yeah.
Yes, and then what JS here said, rub some dirt in it, get up. You can cry about it later. That always reminds me when I see that. I believe it was Mike Rowe that said it, but he said there's two types of complainers. There's the one that stands around and complains, and then there's the one that continues to work to get the job done while complaining.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Exactly.
So something, I did. It's weird. I think I did exceptionally well when we were new parents with the one child, and then we started having more kids, and then we kind of lost the handle for a little bit. And we're like, everybody's getting a spanking, you know what I mean? Like, it's so I don't know if y'all can relate, but one thing that I've noticed, because I would try to listen to older people and learn from them, learn from things like I hear them talking, I'm saying, yeah, I don't want to do that, or wow, that's really good advice, or I hope I can try that. So um, just like what you said, so when there's crying, most especially, so let me just separate the boys from the girls for a minute, because with the boys, when there's crying, then I've said, look, if it hurts, man, you rub it. rub it, grit your teeth, whatever it is, like it hurts. I get it, man. You're gonna have to grunt it out. If you're angry or upset, well, then we need to talk about it so that we can try to resolve that. And
Mhm.
if you're sad, well, we just got to cry it out together, man. I mean,
Yep.
because there are things, when we lost the horse, and man, you do got emotion. So that is when it's really acceptable to cry, to mourn together. But again, that none of that takes precedence. We're not ruled by emotion, because still there's the hard things that need to be done. But I have learned now with females, that's not true. None of what I just said is true, and
Mhm.
it doesn't work. My daughter, and my wife is, listen, when they are emotional, it is much better to first just hug and to hold
Mhm.
and just breathe, and just to have them sort of mimic your breath. So just breathe, calm down, you know, and then with let's when we can address the emotions first and foremost, and then we can say, was there something bothering you? Um, but that's because God has made them as an emotional being, and us as linear. We're different. We have learned different. We have different roles,
Mhm.
and so I don't think we deny them, and I don't think that it's offensive. I think that this is the problem: is you don't celebrate diversity by making everyone the same. You celebrate diversity by functioning well, learning how to argue well.
Mhm.
The friends that I trust most are those that I know where I disagree, where we have locked horns and been able to come out of it alive.
Yep.
And so I always just say, look, if we're going to disagree, let's do it like men, toe to toe. Let's let some sparks fly, and at least we'll have our respect for one another, and we'll just grow closer.
Yep. Yep. And side caveat, when you said that, I have a friend of mine who was very, very proud, and he wore his shirt that says "Real men don't cry." And so I looked at him and I said, "Is that true?" And he goes, "Well, absolutely." And I said, "What's the shortest verse in the Bible?" Yeah, he was like, "Oh, oh," he almost threw his shirt away.
Yeah. Yeah, touche. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, but it's all good, and it is, but that's kind of like that circle to homeschooling is, it's a sanctifying work,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's homeschool. I mean,
Well,
we call it, yeah, we call it like 100 years ago. It was like they wouldn't have understood what you meant. They would have said, "So you're alive and you're going to teach your children
Yeah.
so they can be smart." It's just life, the way God designed it. There's no one else. So, like, I'm a pastor, and I want to speak in hyperbole just because I don't want people to miss the point. It's not my job to teach anyone's kids, but my kids.
Hmm.
It's their job to teach their kids. It's not my job to correct someone's wife. It's your job as a husband to lead them in love and admonition of the Lord, and to treat your wife as a weaker vessel, man. Just be good leaders, and then we can bind together. And um, but yeah, anyway, um, it is so sanctifying. It's,
Hmm.
I've said it before in a number of contexts. You could say, if someone thinks he's a good man, let him get married. She'll tell him
Hmm.
where he's wrong. And that's true, because she's made me so much better. Like, I have had so much sin revealed. I've failed miserably, and I've failed morally. I've failed just practically and financially, and just all those different ways through the years. And so marriage does make you a better man. And I think it's God's design. Parenting. If you think you're a good person, these kids with fur babies, man, really have some kids and
Yeah.
see how well of a parent, how good at parenting you are.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I'm laughing because I'm sitting here relating, going, it wasn't until I got over here with Mrs. Rural that I suddenly discovered, after most of my life, I put the toilet paper on backwards and I don't wash a cup just right.
yeah,
And
exactly. Yes.
yes, yes, that's awesome. Okay, so let's move into, since you guys have been doing this for a little while. My channel is for people that are just kind of getting started. They're either thinking about becoming prepared or they're just starting their journey. For people that want to homestead, what would be your advice for people?
Go at it slowly. I think a lot of people make the mistake of jumping in and doing it all at once, and that will cause burnout for sure.
Mhm.
That's my advice. What's your advice?
Yeah, so you don't have to do it all ever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
we've learned, so the Lord's opened opportunities. We found we're able to do more, not because we got into it, but there were just opportunities that once we got rolling in certain things, we were able to trade for something else. Like we never could have got into pigs, but you learn that once you get the ball rolling, a pig fits into that economy because you convert all your scraps to bacon.
Mhm.
It's the least wasteful thing. You can feed them for virtually free if it's only one or two. And it's like having that one dairy cow. You have that one pig in the back, and you don't have to raise them, but you do got to have friends who do. So
well, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes too, and I think that we see it a lot right now is those that portray a life of like self-sufficiency, like they're the only ones that are doing it all. Um, and in my experience, that is actually really, really hard to do without a community. Like you can't go into it thinking I'm going to do it all by myself. You just can't
Mhm.
because you're going to fail.
right,
And I think right now there's a false perception and almost like a glamorization of this self sufficiency.
Mhm.
And so when people start talking about it, I want to say, whoa, 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 back up just a minute because that's not what it's about, because you're stronger together, not alone.
it doesn't
Right.
take 40 acres. So I said we were on a 40-acre farm, um, but not half of it is being used right now. Worth thinking about how do we make use of all of that. But I had heard one person, and it was actually a survivalist. He had a survival podcast. I don't even know who it was, but he did answer a question fairly well, saying, "Well, someone had asked him how many acres does it take," and he responded with, "I'm not going to answer your question. We're going to instead answer the question, how much can we do with 1 acre?"
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, Bob Ross used to say, anyone can paint,
Mhm.
anyone can farm, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and so listening, yeah, if you're in a suburb, if you have zero land, man, you can get a flower pot in a window. And you will be blessed because of that. You can join in with community. We've
Well,
got ground that we don't farm, but
right.
we've gone to other.
People don't think about your mind automatically goes to, gardening or animals when you think of homesteading. Um, but people forget that there are skill sets, like canning, candle making, other types of preservation. It's not just about being able to make a product, but it's having the skills to do some of these different things. And so to me, that's part of it too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't have the property, there are other things that you can do.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yes. Man,
Yeah.
we had so getting started, like find the old people and, and hook up
Yes.
because like we literally you know so we don't have grandparents we can learn from. I have one grandparent, but she doesn't do any of those things, and
Mine have passed away.
right, and hers have passed away, and we didn't have anyone really to glean from. The church setting that we are in right now, there by God's grace are a couple of older women who are legit, man. Like their parents grew up in the Depression and they did it all. Like we started getting into doing chickens and they're like, "Well, honey, you got to save those feathers." I'm like, "Save the feathers." And she is like, I said, "Well, how many feathers does it take?" He said, "Oh, more than you got, honey, but you can store them." I'm thinking, "Where am I going to store feathers? This is awful." But anyway, that she literally they were asking questions and I said and I call this one woman our church matron. She's like mom, you know. And so I said, "You're fixing to give a class," and she just chuckled. And I said, I'm serious. Like, we're gonna get these young women together, all these young mothers. They want to learn this. They want to support their families. And I said, you just need to teach them. Like, they're bombarding you with questions. You're gonna give it. You're gonna come to my home and you're gonna give a class on how to can. So we scheduled the first day, and they show up, and she's got binders made for all of them. She's been waiting on this. And so she did, and they did multiple classes in my home for all the young women of the church and in the community. We reached out, and so there were other women in the community that came up and taught how to can meat, can bread, can dry goods, can tomatoes, and a couple other vegetables. And did a class, took notes, and she said, like, here's all the junk on the internet you can completely disregard, and here are the things they don't tell you that you really need to do.
Mhm.
And so that was wonderful. Finding people like that is very important. And so, getting started is, find those people you can rely on,
Mhm.
and uh, and who can help you with, and just reestablish that interdependency. What's going
Yes.
on here?
Which I see Miss Marissa popped in. Hello, Miss Marissa. So on yours, so we'll go back to networking. Small story before I go to my question. I talked to one of the city guys at my work a couple of months ago, and he was telling me about his weekend where he paid to take his daughter to a farm so she can take care of animals. I'm like,
Yeah. There's
dude,
people
I
doing
will pay you.
right, right. Just
Yeah, yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's true. And so people are, I'll say this. uh, there's a lot of people, and we have friends that have benefited from doing things like this, where they will have classes on their farm. We've given some classes and that we've charged for,
hopefully more.
simply because it costs it.
Mhm.
Like, we try to
Well, they took
provide.
the product home,
Right, we
so
try to, like, they come, a lot of ladies come. Rachel taught a class, so they left with a product and then knowing how to make it, and so we invested in the materials it would take to do that. But there's a lot of benefits. The one thing that I think we would both guard people from is, there's a mindset that there's a trade-off. So you work, say, a public job, and if you want to homestead, a lot of people are looking for a side hustle,
Mhm.
uh, and then homesteading is something that's very good, and they want to try to figure out, well, how do I make my homestead profitable? Now, that's a good question, uh, but I think we need some qualification, because homesteading will pay for itself.
Mhm.
You will save money on your groceries. You will be healthier. Throw away gym memberships because the work is on the farm.
Mhm.
Um, and so you've got all these benefits. The food is healthier, and you save money, and you can sell your goats or your chicken eggs or something, and to help pay for feeds so that it's sustainable. If you reach that point, then expand on that. Don't think of replacing your income
right.
with that farm, and that's weird for a lot of people to imagine. But what we have come across is, people say, well, if I teach someone how to do this, then they won't come to me for their soaps or for their vegetables or for whatever. The mindset instead ought to be that I want everyone to know everything I know, and to be
Mhm.
able to do everything that I do, so that we can blend together in the way that, if I have a dry year, uh, I need somebody I can get those resources from.
Mhm.
And so that's why we don't do it together. We're not going to all move together on a compound or commune, and we're all going to be one, because then we would lose that strength
Mhm.
for the dry years. We would lose that distinction between, God giving us a year of blessing, and this other person a year of discipline. Um, a lot of people will read the Old Testament and think Israel was communist. No, they were more of, like, what I would call a dispersalist
Mhm.
economy. So where you can experience blessing or shortfall in the fruit of your labors, but you're also not gonna monopolize. If you have a good year, you're not gonna monopolize and start growing your neighbor's crop. You're gonna allow him to grow his crop, and you're gonna try to give him increase where you want to buy that crop, and then where he has shortfall, you're gonna allow him to glean from your crop. We're gonna take care of one another.
Mm.
So that's what you got to realize. This whole idea of money has got us all shook up.
Yeah.
If my homestead is self sufficient, if I can run it and I find I'm not putting money in that it hasn't earned, now I don't need the money. If I walk away from the job, I don't need that income that I had formerly, because if everyone's homestead in our little network in our community, if they're all self-sufficient in some regard like this, what do we need money for?
Yep.
We don't need any income. Um, and so it's that interdependency. And so that's one thing that I think is missing from the homestead movement is this idea that we have to profit. And I would just, maybe some of these people that know scripture on here, or understand some of the not even scripture, but like just historical perspectives. Ambition for a long time as a term was negative. Someone who viewed themselves as, or had a drive to put themselves above other people,
Hmm.
uh, wasn't a good thing. You need to be able to find your place in the community, serve well, function well, be a strong link, you know. Um, and so,
Well, and you can't go into homesteading think that's going to replace um, your your present income. Like you can't do that. And again, I think that's something else that happens. People think about, well, I'm going to start this, and it's going to replace what I'm getting paid at work.
Hmm.
Um, and don't do that. Like I tell people, don't ever do that. I don't want to say don't try to do it, but um, our situation that we're in right now, I would I'm very apprehensive at giving any kind of um positive outlook as far as, yeah, it's going to replace your income, you know. And I think like with homesteading, it's not about the income for us, it's about having that resource.
Hmm.
It's not about saving money necessarily, but it's about having that resource.
right,
So
there is supply and demand, on worth, but there comes a time where the demand grows high, but the demand can't be met.
Yep.
And so resources is very important. And two, don't sell out and on all the overtime. I've even told people as well. So I've got a good job. I work public work industry, and and we do utilize that to try to help us to get to that point. We're not. I mean, I'm not off grid entirely. I'm not. We're not 100% or anything, uh, but we need to be careful too, because um, I tell people, we're a pretty industry rich community where we live. There's, to the extent that we've lost all our tradesmen. We
yeah,
have no tradesmen because they've all went into these factories,
Hmm.
and so they think, well, my time's worth more. I'm going to go and earn the paycheck, and then they can work the overtime and earn even more. But I always remind them, you don't have a very high value for your time, because you think that you value your time. What if you're a guy that makes, I don't know, 20, 30, $40 an hour, but what if you take all of the profits of that industry you work in and divide it by man hours? They value your time a lot
not
more than
mhm.
you do. They're
Hmm.
making hundreds per your man hour. And so we need to understand that. So whenever, what Rachel said is, the further removed you get, if I use this analogy, that if they've listened to me, they've probably heard me say before, but if you put a seed in the ground, you're going to get out lots of fruit, lots of seeds, all this increase. If my neighbor, if I don't do that, but and I get my fruit from my neighbor, he puts a seed in the ground, he gets seed and fruit, and I purchase his fruit and I suffer loss, because he has to get gain from his labors. If I get that from the grocery store, well, then the farmer has gain, the grocery store has gain, and I suffer double loss.
Mhm.
I was in a conversation just yesterday with someone in a trade locally, a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh yeah, in trades it's that way, right? I mean, you can uh, say if you want to be a plumber, okay, go be a plumber. Go get a real good job. You can travel. You can be a plumber, pipe fitter. You might make your $40 an hour. That's fine working for industry. What if you move back? What if you own your own business and then um, you're able to work for yourself as a plumber? Well, now you're not making $40 an hour with some benefits. You're making 80 to $100 an hour for that same service. And I would say even less strenuous. It's not industrial. It's more commercial. So then, but then if you're a plumber and you're doing it for your own home, well, then it's not. There's not any law. It's just 100% gain. You're saving far more. It's a threefold increase. So
Having
anything,
those trades are important.
your education is the same. The further you get from your education, you're going to suffer loss if you're not personally doing this yourself or raising your children yourself. I've said this before. There's great teachers in schools and in churches and things like that, but at the end of the day, they're not their parent. They're not building that child's not building that relationship with the one who God put in their life for that purpose. And what parent doesn't want a closer relationship with their child?
Yep.
So it's that way in education. It's that way in medicine. The further you get from your medicine, you're going to suffer loss. It's that way with everything.
Yep. Yep. And I've told people too, if you're going to go homestead or do something, it's not a get rich scheme at all. You're not going to you're not
Exactly.
going to do the Hollywood, on TV, anything like that. And then to the people that give me excuses, they go, "Well, it costs a lot of money. You're going to save a lot of money doing it." Well, that's really stressful. When I go out to the garden, I pick strawberries and stuff and eat while I work. How stressed am I? And they
Right.
throw excuse after excuse at me, and I'm like, you know, probably your best way if you want to start out, find folks like you. Go out to your farmer, go out to somebody, and go, "Hey, you guys have a fence I can repair or something needs painted," and make a connection and learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, you're right. But work is a blessing. It's My son told me one time he was working on a fence, and he said, "Oh, I'll be glad when this fence is done." And I said, "It will never be done.
Hmm.
Like we're putting half rotten poles in the ground. The poles are growing old. The fence is, I bought secondhand, or I got secondhand, so it had rusted already. We were patching it as we were putting it up."
Hmm.
And I said, by the time we finish all this, we'll likely be replacing or working on other areas. I said, not just this, but if we don't hold the weeds at bay, this fence will be grown. It'll be torn down by weeds and trees and everything within a year. And I said, the work is never done. I said, we just got to try to find that vision that they have
Hmm.
so that they can carry it on to their children so they might seek their vision because it's never done. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to witness that. I said I started, working on my dad's farm, and I did all that. I cleaned all the fence rows, all the buildings, everything else. I bush hogged all that around 80, 90 breed does. And listen, I'm a young man. I'm 35 years old, and this was in my teenage years. And it's there. The areas that were usable pasture are woods.
Hmm.
It goes away quick. It doesn't take one generation. We're talking about homeschooling, homesteading. We're
Hmm.
talking about what a lot of people have called this old way of life.
Hmm.
Um, What we're calling normal is not very new or not very old at all. It's all very new, and it hasn't worked so well for us. And we see how quickly all of those old ways were lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The family farms have all been mortgaged if they
Yep.
haven't been split and sold. This idea, I hear this all the time. Guys that work for a retirement, and they put all this money back into pigeonhole it for a retirement. Then they take so when if they do pay their house off, they sell it to their children, and then they cash out so they can buy their home in Gulf Shores or something else and have this easy life and hopefully have enough left over to keep them out of a nursing home. And then they leave their children drowning in debt.
Yep.
And then they wonder, why haven't they taken care of me? Well, I mean, it's kind of a poor example. Imagine if instead, if I took all of my increase and I think we should save for that inheritance, but if I poured it into my children, what if my children never entered into slavery of debt ever? And they moved in, if I had plans in my home to say, how can I modify this home that it might function well for you and as your family grows and expands so that you don't suffer any debt, any loss, where all of God's blessing to me is the blessing, which is biblically is to my children and to my children's children. That's what I want to see. And so we really have to begin to think in those generational terms. And I think that's what will help our mindset with regard to homesteading
Mhm.
is you got to think generational. You can't think the quick gain or anything else, but you got to think of long term. You know.
Yes, agree. And people got to get into that mindset. It's not a hobby. It's not a pastime. It's not a fun fad. It's a lifestyle.
Right. Yep. And I think that's the fad thing gets me
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and that's something. Hey, that's another because you're gonna have if you get into homesteading, you're gonna have that. You're gonna show up to the family farmers market, and you're gonna have the world's best cinnamon rolls, and then in the next month, the Amish lady is gonna have your cinnamon rolls there. You know, somebody's gonna be doing what you're doing, or because
Hmm.
they sell hotcakes, or you're gonna find that you want to get into goats, and so it catches on. And at first you think, wow, this is great. I can sell all these goats to these 4-Hers. And then the 4-Hers are given uh, a false economy, sense of economy with those goats. And the next thing they know, they want to sell you a goat, an $80 goat for $250.
Oof.
And and then you have more kids want to get rid of goats than get into them. And
Hmm.
it feels like your what you've built is crashing. Well, that's how you safeguard yourself is think sustainable. Think how much meat in a year does my family eat? How much milk in a year does my family drink? How much and then budget in excess so that way if you don't have quite the production or you can take that extra and then be able to sell it or trade or barter.
Hmm.
Uh, and so we do a lot. We barter bees and honey and animals and um everything.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean on that. And we have hit our hour, and I'm telling you, every single time that I do these interviews, I'm going, it's an hour already? Like it feels like it just started. So I'm gonna let you guys do where everybody can find you at. Where can they go follow you, find you, all that fun stuff.
So we have a Facebook page. It's called Honey Hill Farm of Hawesville, Kentucky. And so there is another Honey Hill Farm, but that's why you have to put in the Hawesville, Kentucky, and it should pop up.
Yeah, I think it is just Honey Hill Farm, Hallsville, KY.
Is it?
Mhm.
Okay.
So is kind of the handle for the Facebook. And then I think she has a Honey Hill gal on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I don't do much
She
on there.
doesn't do much of her. She does a few things, but the Facebook is predominantly where a lot of our community is. And then
That's where I'm most active.
yeah, yeah. So and you can reach out again. I don't want to fall short of encouraging anyone. If you're in this area, man, hit us up. So if you find yourself near Hallsville, between Louisville and Owensboro, or think you'd come to this area, don't hesitate. I mean, you can go through message and try to link up. We are so much in favor of the in-person relationships,
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm all about networking, and I keep trying to get that across. Yes, you want to have this type of networking, but we're in that new age society. Virtual networking is just as good.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you
Yep.
you can learn a lot of stuff. People from the other side of the planet, I will never meet them, but they can teach me a lot.
Absolutely.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so all of that, everything, build your relationships, online, those you can learn from, find good resources, get good books,
Mhm.
buy good books, and it's all good. It's a learning process. It's a life we lead.
Yeah,
That it is.
Southern. Yeah, come on down.
Yep.
Yeah.
She will definitely do it too. Do you guys have a YouTube?
Yes, I do. I just started it. So I don't have very many videos. I think it's still the Honey Hill Farm of Hawesville, Kentucky, I think. The
Okay.
KY. I
Okay. I
think.
will I will find it. I will post everything down in the comment section after this goes. And I'll go
Okay.
over to the Facebook and make sure all the links and everything's posted because I'm sure that everybody's going to want to follow you guys. And then maybe we'll be able to do this again because I have a ton more questions. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's been fun.
all
He's a
right,
talk.
guys. I'm sure
You have
we could go back and forth, and I'm telling you too, 5 points on the legit beard. That's it's quite the beard.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. Everybody that's in the chat, which it looks like YouTube, broke down or whatever, because everybody's saying that they got the link, they didn't get the link, and all that other stuff. Which, hi, little one. All right, guys. I appreciate it, and we're going to bounce off for the night. So, good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out and checking us out, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.